In the heart of Europe, Austria and Hungary stand as two nations with deeply intertwined histories. Yet, each boasts a distinct cultural identity. Once united under the mighty Austro-Hungarian Empire, these neighbours have since followed their own distinct paths. Join us as we investigate the complex interplay of cooperation and conflict that has sculpted the destinies of these fascinating neighbours, divided by history, but linked by a rich and enduring heritage. Long before the grandeur of empires, the lands of Austria and Hungary bore witness to a diverse range of early settlers. The area now known as Austria was initially inhabited by Celtic tribes, and later significantly influenced by Roman conquests, which left behind a legacy of roads and ruins. Across the eastern plains, the Magyars, ancestors of modern Hungarians, galloped into the Carpathian Basin in the 9th century, establishing a foothold that would evolve into the Kingdom of Hungary under the crown of Saint Stephen in the year 1000. The medieval era saw both regions carve out distinct identities. In Austria, the Babenberg dynasty laid the groundwork for a burgeoning realm within the Holy Roman Empire, fostering a nexus of trade and culture at the crossroads of Europe. Meanwhile, Hungary flourished under the Arpad dynasty, becoming a regional power famed for its formidable warriors and grand fortresses. Buda Castle, later enhanced during the Renaissance, stands as a majestic sentinel over the Danube. As Europe's power shifted, these lands saw waves of knights and kings contest their territories. By the close of the Middle Ages, Austria and Hungary were poised on the cusp of a union that would alter the course of their histories. As the Middle Ages waned, the illustrious Habsburg family began to cast a long shadow over Europe. Their ascent marked a pivotal turn in the histories of Austria and Hungary, entwining their fates through dynastic marriages and shrewd political maneuvers. In Austria, the Habsburgs consolidated their power, transforming Vienna into a beacon of imperial grandeur and a crucible of Renaissance thought. Meanwhile, Hungary faced its own trials and tribulations. The catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Mohács in 1526 left the kingdom vulnerable, paving the way for a partial Habsburg takeover. This pivotal event divided Hungary, with the western part integrated into the Habsburg realm, while the central regions fell under Ottoman rule, and the eastern territories became the autonomous Principality of Transylvania. This fragmentation would haunt Hungary for centuries, leaving a legacy of resilience. The Habsburgs' rule was not just about political domination, it was a cultural flowering. Vienna blossomed with Baroque architecture and the melodious compositions of court musicians that would echo through the ages. In Hungary, despite the yoke of foreign dominance, the preservation of Hungarian culture became a form of resistance, with the noble estates in places like Eger and Pécs becoming centres of Hungarian art and learning. This era, replete with the palatial expansions like Schönbrunn Palace and Buda Castle, showcased the complex relationship between ruler and subject, oppressor and defender. The year 1867 marked a new chapter in the saga of Austria and Hungary, as the Ausgleich, or compromise, transformed the two regions into dual monarchs within a single empire. This innovative arrangement sought to balance the distinct hopes and identities of both Austria and Hungary, while binding them under a shared crown and common foreign policy. Vienna and Budapest, rose as twin capitals after the Compromise of 1867, each with its own rhythm, but orchestrated to balance with the other. The Austro-Hungarian Empire became a powerhouse of industrial innovation and economic might. The flicker of factory lights and the sound of steam engines wove through both countries, with railways stitching the diverse regions into a cohesive economic entity. This era spurred an economic boom, transforming sleepy towns into bustling cities, adorned with opulent buildings that spoke of newfound wealth and confidence. Artistically, the empire was a mosaic of influences, with Vienna backing the classical music scene, home to legendary composers like Brahms and Mahler. Hungary, with its soulful melodies and vivid folklore, contributed to the empire's cultural heritage. Figures like Franz Liszt and Bela Bartok became symbols of Hungary, their music echoing the complex identity of a nation under a dual monarchy. The empire's architecture mirrored its societal complexity. In Vienna, the Ringstraße showcased grandiose buildings, such as the Vienna State Opera and the Rathaus, a testament to imperial ambition. Budapest, crowned by the Gothic revival splendour of the Hungarian Parliament building, reflected its rise as a co-capital, establishing its position through stone. Despite its outward success, the empire was riddled with internal contradictions. The balancing act between Austrian and Hungarian interests often teetered on the brink of conflict, with nationalist sentiments simmering beneath the opulence. The myriad ethnic groups within the empire's borders — Czechs, Slovaks, Romanians, Croats, and others — yearned for recognition and autonomy, setting the stage for the political tumult that would eventually lead to its unravelling. As we delve deeper into Austria and Hungary, you bring these stories to life. Keep liking and sharing to help me continue this journey. Don't forget to subscribe and share your insights in the comments as we continue to explore the world together. As the early 20th century unfolded, the Austro-Hungarian Empire found itself on a collision course with destiny. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914 was not just a spark, but a detonator that plunged the empire into World War I. Austria-Hungary, tangled in a web of alliances and rivalries, was thrust into a conflict that would test its endurance. Throughout the war, the dual monarchy's forces battled on multiple fronts, stretching from the Italian Alps to the vast Eastern Front. The war demanded more than just military prowess. It strained the social and economic makeup of both Austria and Hungary, as resources were funneled into an unrelenting war machine. The home front in Vienna and Budapest simmered with unrest, as shortages and inflation eroded the once stable lives of their people. The end of the war in 1918 brought no relief, but rather the unravelling of an empire. The Treaty of Trianon in 1920 was a death knell for Hungary, severing 2/3 of its territory and leaving millions of Hungarians outside the new, smaller borders. Austria faced its own existential crisis, reduced to a republic stripped of its imperial dominions and struggling for identity and stability. The dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire marked more than just a territorial or political change. It signified the collapse of a multi-ethnic conglomerate that had balanced a complex array of nationalities and cultures for centuries. The legacy of the empire's fall was profound, seeding the ground for further upheaval as both Austria and Hungary grappled with their new realities. In the interwar years, Austria and Hungary each navigated their shattered landscapes in markedly different ways. the shadow of the empire loomed large as Vienna struggled to redefine itself in a world that had turned its back on monarchies. The political climate oscillated between fragile democracy and rising authoritarianism. And in 1938, Nazi Germany forcibly annexed Austria in what is known as the Anschluss. This era, fraught with upheaval, left a deep imprint on the Austrian identity as it grappled with its loss of power and prestige. Meanwhile, Hungary, truncated and humiliated by the Treaty of Trianon, grappled with profound loss, territorial, human, and psychological. The nation turned increasingly to nationalist sentiments, hoping to revise the borders imposed by the peace settlements. This pursuit aligned Hungary with Nazi Germany, a fateful alliance that promised the return of lost territories. During World War II, Hungary regained some regions, but at the cost of its autonomy and ultimately further devastation. The Second World War deepened the scars in both nations. While Austria was annexed and considered part of the German Reich, Hungary, an Axis partner, found itself on the losing side again. The end of the war saw both nations occupied, Austria divided among the Allies, and Hungary under Soviet influence. In the ashes of World War II, Austria and Hungary faced the daunting task of reconstruction under the watchful eyes of occupying forces. Austria declared its perpetual neutrality in 1955 as part of the Austrian State Treaty with the Allied powers, a strategic move that enabled it to rebuild and develop without the burden of military alliances. Vienna once again emerged as a cultural and diplomatic hub, hosting international institutions and negotiating the complexity of Cold War politics with a neutral stance. This period saw a resurgence in Austrian arts and the re-establishment of Vienna as a city synonymous with music and elegance. Hungary, meanwhile, entered a period of Soviet domination that was marked by repression, resistance, and eventual rebellion. The 1956 Hungarian Revolution, though brutally crushed by Soviet tanks, became a symbol of defiance against authoritarian rule. Hungary's journey through the Cold War was fraught with economic hardships and political struggles, but it also fostered a gradual softening of the regime, leading to economic reforms and a somewhat more open society compared to its Eastern Bloc counterparts. As the Iron Curtain fell, Austria and Hungary steered their courses towards European integration. Austria, leveraging its long-standing tradition of neutrality and stability, joined the European Union in 1995. The country quickly positioned itself as a mediator and connector within the Union, capitalizing on its geographic and cultural position at the crossroads of Western and Eastern Europe. Hungary, emerging from the shadows of Soviet influence, embraced democratic reforms with enthusiasm. It joined NATO in 1999 and the European Union in 2004, marking its return to the European fold after decades of isolation. The transition was punctuated by a revival of cultural and national pride, with Budapest rejuvenating its historical and cultural landmarks to showcase its rich heritage. Both nations have navigated the challenges of modern Europe, from economic crises to the complexities of EU politics, while continuing to define their identities within the broader European context. Austria and Hungary, once conjoined titans of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, have evolved into distinct entities with rich individual cultures. Their shared history has been a backdrop to their unique developments, shaping not just their past, but influencing their contemporary roles in Europe. For more captivating adventures and explorations of incredible places around the world, click on the video on screen now. Your next journey awaits. Happy travels!